constitution or what kind of a country they wanted. Total absolute separation from Britain. No kings, no queens, none of that stuff. A republic. End of story. So they drew their inspiration from the United Ireland, the United Irishmen of 1798. Wolfe Tone and so on. A republic, period. So that continued and started to gain strength towards the end of the 19th century. Parallel with that, you had a growth in the parliamentary movement under Charles Stewart Parnell and the Irish Party. So the Irish Party in the House of Commons was now an extremely adept caucus, if you like. They were a power group. Where the heck? Huh?
The dog, I'll go get the dog.
Whose dog is it? Your dog? No?
No, but
When you say get the dog now, I don't want you to go to jail.
And take care of it.
I just wonder why they seem awfully close. Huh? Oh, well then, if they are, you know.
Just clarify Wolfe Tone, exactly who he was, or did you cover that already?
No, I didn't. I just dropped his name there for a moment. He was the leader of the United Irishmen, who were the rebellious, if you will, of the 1798. But he was the leader, or one of the leaders. He's the one that we most
So he
associate.
was one who wanted a totally separate republic.
Yes.
And Parnell wanted to work with the British,
Yes.
with the Parliament.
Yeah, and on the French and American models.
The
So-
Wolfe Tone.
Correct. And he is honoured today, all down through the 200 years following, as the father of the Irish Republic. When people, there was a very famous Irish rebel group that played called the Wolfe Tones,
Right.
which was sort of like but you didn't, if you knew Irish politics and Irish history, you didn't have to ask what their politics were. So, and then there's an annual pilgrimage, literally, by Republicans to his graveyard in Bodenstown outside Dublin, and so on. So he's the iconic figure for true republicanism, not, no, yeah.
it's worthwhile mentioning that he was a Protestant.
Yes, it is. Actually, I'm glad you did that. What's your first name?
Theobald.
No, your first name.
My first name?
Yeah.
Colette.
Colette. Thank you, Colette. That was very nice. In fact, a lot of most of the leaders actually were Protestant.
Yes.
So how did his sympathies get away from Britain to...
Well, remember, most of your founding fathers were Protestants.
Yeah, but that's a different issue.
It's a political, because they saw it as a political struggle, not as a religious struggle.
Correct.
Okay.
An economic struggle. Actually, I've often said in this class that the most natural Republicans are Presbyterians. Because Presbyterians don't have a hierarchy, they don't have bishops, like the Episcopalians. As I often say, you like that, they put the Bible under their arm and a gun on the other and they go off into the woods. And, they don't need a priest to intermediate between them and God. So...
Was there ever talk of a federal system? Because you compare it to the American.
No, because there would be no one to federate with. The Irish never really considered themselves Anglo or in any way.
But they had regions, didn't they?
Yeah, but they were all the same language. There was really very similar culture.
So there was no local autonomy, local
Yeah,
governments.
there was, but there was a great cohesion of culture, laws, and art and music and so on.
Unitary state was definitely it.
Yes, it was. Yes, it had a very common history. There were divisions, of course, and a lot of rivalries and a lot of wars.
Right, so it's
But
French, really, more than American.
we're talking about Ireland, right? The island of Ireland. Yes, it was a very homogeneous country.
Yes.
And-
I meant the Constitution being more like the French than the American.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, actually, the French owes almost everything to the American Constitution. Really, the American Constitution is the father of all
Except for the
republics.
fundamental difference that it was created by a federation of sovereign states, whereas France was not. France was taken from a king. So it had a completely different constitutional origin.
There was a model proposed for a federation of sorts in the 1980s, but back at that point there wasn't.
But the state governments in the United States definitely would be a model, I think, because
Well,
they have
you're
their
getting
own
into a lot of constitutional stuff now. You know, if you read the Federalist Papers, which you're kind of referring to, there was a big division in the United States when they were deciding on their constitution whether it would be one country. In other words, where did sovereignty lie?
Right.
Did it lie at the federal level, or did it lie at the state level? And as I say, that was a huge argument, which I find fascinating because I've studied and read a great deal about it. But it has to do with the study of constitutionalism and what a constitution is, a written constitution is. It has to do fundamentally with what sovereignty is. Your concept of sovereignty is everything. That's everything. How you express that concept of sovereignty. The English express it in terms of, that's our sovereign. Our sovereignty is contained in the person of the king, of the monarch. And that's legitimate, because that's their concept of it. And I would not ask them to give it up. We have a different concept of sovereignty. We have a concept of pooled sovereignty, where we all are sovereign, but we all agree to pool it together. So, we don't want to get into that cul-de-sac either, if we can, on it. Although it is apropos to what we're talking about tonight, because it is, in fact, one's concept of sovereignty, which really motivates men and women at the most fundamental level, who they think they are. Who do you think you are? It probably contains a lot more wisdom than we give it credit for. And of course, the great writers Joseph Locke, although I wouldn't say he was, but Hobbes and Joseph Locke and so on. My favorite, of course, is Tom Paine. I think Tom Paine got it all right. He far even more than Jefferson. I think Jefferson relied heavily on Tom Paine. But anyway, Tom Paine had a crystal clear idea of what sovereignty was about. Absolutely. If you ever want to understand the concept of sovereignty in a republic, just read Tom Paine. It is so incredibly clear. It's like the fog clears and say, oh my God, that's, oh. He just does it. None of the others do it. Certainly not Thomas Jefferson. And absolutely not any of the others like John Adams. Anyway, let's get back to how this, pardon? Yeah, how this potential, if you like, for conflict, that there was always going to be, half of the room was going to say, no, let's do this the constitutional way, and the other says, no, let's be prepared to shed our blood, and so on. And it's literally unavoidable, and it's there every single time. And unless you fully understand that and think about it deeply, you're not going to understand Irish history, and probably not the history of any other country either, because it's always there. If there's a struggle for independence or for the exercise of your sovereignty, the guy that's on trial right now in The Hague, he thought he was doing the right thing for the Serbian. You clear out everybody else. There's a very quick logic seems to kick in that you start cleansing out all the others. I know it's a horrible thing, and that's why it has to be it's very dangerous, because once you arrive at a concept of your sovereignty, and then you start to see others as interlopers and people who need to be gotten rid of. And Margaret and I watched a wonderful movie the other night called Freedom Writers, which was a true story written or about a teacher in Long Beach in the early 2000s. It's absolutely fascinating, and all of that. And I'm sitting there watching it, and again, the violence is there because the blacks consider themselves as the rightful, because it was black. The whites, well, there was only one white guy. The Hispanics and basically the Asians. And it really tells you a tremendous amount about what's going on in Los Angeles right now, and what has potentially to go on right here in southeast San Diego, where you do have very clear territorial and images of themselves. They want the blacks to move over east of or west of 805, and the Hispanics said, this is our part here, and we're represented by Ben Hueso, and you go talk to your guy, Tony Young. I mean, there's the gang mentality there, potentially. Now, it's control, then it's not, but it's always there. So as soon as a movement starts to assert its concept of its sovereignty and its independence or whatever, watch out very quickly for that division. It's going to come very quickly. Now, the IRB was a secret society, made no secret about it, absolutely dedicated to getting Irish independence through physical force. No ifs, buts, maybes about it. When you joined that, you pledged your life if you were called upon to do whatever needed to be done. In America, that split the Clan na Gael. The Clan na Gael was a big Irish organization,